There's so much to unpack from this election. Part of it is also how alternative media was able to crush the major propagandist networks. But we won this time. Podcasts and shows like this one, Joe Rogan, my show, the All In podcast. The left couldn't keep up with it, from Bobby Kennedy to Tulsi Gabbard. And then finally, of course, it cannot be repeated enough. God bless Elon Musk. I mean, that guy put it all on the line.
Man, when have young people come out for the Republican? I mean, like never.
So, Megyn, it is conceivable that without this record movement of youth vote, he doesn't win.
You know, we're living in the worst timeline possible when Charlie Kirk and Megyn Kelly, of all people, are making sense with their analysis of Donald Trump's election win. The influence of right-wing propaganda in their media ecosystem will be felt for the rest of our lives as the Republicans bet big on capturing the young male vote and are now reaping the rewards. And perhaps the worst part is that one of their own was a more effective political strategist than everyone on the DNC's payroll.
The former president's outreach to male voters seemingly paying off. In 2020 and 2016, about 4 in 10 men under 30 supported him. Yesterday, nearly half cast a ballot for Trump. Among men who turned out for the first time, 62% supporting Trump, while 36% supported Harris. The Trump campaign has taken an unconventional approach, including appearances with unconventional media figures popular with male voters. Trump even saying he consulted his son Barron for advice. And a key late campaign appearance on top podcaster Joe Rogan's show. Rogan later endorsing Trump.
Leave it to the Democratic Party to feel so entitled to winning the election that they were outsmarted and outclassed, frankly, by an 18-year-old Barron Trump. However, this is far from an anomaly or just a blip on the radar of the Democratic Party as a whole, because Trump's crushing victory revealed the single most important issue holding the Democrats back from true electoral success: remaining beholden to the corporate and ultra-rich donors who dictate the party's policy platform.
And the gap between the people on top and everybody else is getting wider and wider. And then, Kristen, on top of all of that, we got a corrupt campaign finance system which allows billionaires to buy elections. So if you're an average worker out there, you're saying, hey, I'm working longer and longer hours, going nowhere in a hurry, worried about my kids, and yet the people on top have never had it so good. Where is the Democratic Party? If you're an average working person out there, do you really think that the Democratic Party is going to the mats, taking on powerful special interests and fighting for you? I think the overwhelming answer is no. You could say that I'm for raising the minimum wage to a living wage, guarantee health care for all people, expanding Social Security. And by the way, I also support a woman's right to control her own body, etc. It's not either or. It's going forward in both directions.
The Democratic Party is not a left party. The Democratic Party is a center or center conservative party. There are a lot of true believers in that we can capitalism our way out of poverty in the Democratic Party. If anything, that's probably the majority.
Right.
And that's an area in which I agree with Dr. King, that assessment is flawed.
And we find ourselves, I believe, in a time where there are, let's say, peers in history of mass movements of people that mobilize to protect one another in times of fascism and authoritarianism. And this is the era that we are poised to enter. Authoritarians and people that he affiliates closely with and strongmen abroad in regimes like that, it is not uncommon to jail political dissidents or legislative opponents. This is the world that we very realistically may be entering. And the way that we do everything that we can to prevent this is by building a very strong social fabric and social infrastructure.
Bernie and AOC have been vocal about their issues with the Democratic Party establishment and the steps needed to earn back trust with working class voters. They understand that without real solutions and a focus on economic policies that benefit everyday people, the party is bound to lose its base. While there are people with real solutions within the party working to make change, the sad reality is that much of the party is focused on something else entirely.
There's one promise left that he could fulfill, being a transitional figure. He could resign the presidency in the next 30 days, make Kamala Harris the president of the United States.
Well, we need to take stock of why we are being held hostage to the far left. No one should be and wants to be kowtowing to the extremes of their own parties. Most Democrats I know think there's a huge problem at the border. Most Democrats I know think, frankly, that males at birth shouldn't play in women's sports and vice versa. Medicare for all is not something that the bulk of the Democratic Party believes in, but yet we spend tons of time on it. Now, on immigration, there are people who do believe, and I think I buy into it, that part of the problem we've had as Democrats is that we have gotten pulled to the left so far that we can't make common sense decisions. There's no evidence that the Bernie Sanders wing of the Democratic Party has met with any success or represents this party.
Liberals and establishment Democrats would rather accept symbolic, meaningless gestures and point fingers at their own base rather than looking inward and championing the populist left-wing economic agenda that actually improves the material conditions of their voters. But as I mentioned earlier, that will never happen unless the party divorces itself from the special interests that are playing with our lives and using our political system for their own profit.
When you have somebody like Kamala Harris, like Maurice said, who represents a party that is capitalist, just like the Republican Party is a capitalist party. They benefit from billionaire donors. So what they rely on, since their policies aren't fundamentally going to address the needs of the working class, they have to rely on certain messaging. And if Kamala Harris has mixed messages where she's starting off with this populism, but doesn't even say the word working class, did not say anything about Medicare for all, did not say anything about a $15 minimum wage, things that were tentpole issues for Bernie Sanders. So the way that they get those people back, I think looking at non-voters who are drawn to things like a $15 minimum wage and don't believe that populism requires racism.
The only thing she could do is go after corporate greed. She starts doing that. Then she is told by Tony West, her brother-in-law, not to do that anymore. Tony West is the top lawyer for Uber. It's absurd. Yeah. And that's the Democratic Party. And they set themselves up to fail. I'm even wondering when Tony West went into the ballot, did he even vote for her?
Oh, wow.
Now, he probably did because he'd like to see her in the White House because then he's in the Oval Office all the time. But he was actively sabotaging her campaign, whether he knew it or not.
The best way to materially improve the lives of working and middle-class voters is to remove as much special interest money from our political system as possible. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, the influence of these donors, it creates policies that hurt the majority of Americans and benefit only the few. Real change won't come until we put an end to this system of legalized bribery and prioritize the needs of the people over corporate profits.